We've started a playlist called Badass Women Who Work, and we'll be talking about all kinds of female work journeys from women of all ages, but mostly in their 50s, their experience, whether it be corporate, professional, or entrepreneurial. And we'll talk about how working women handle setbacks and how, when, why they start their own side hustles or new businesses, and ultimately how it all works out. Today, you're going to want to hear from my long-term friend of 42 years, Dawn, or some like to call her Donna because she has a cool professional journey that involves a long corporate history and most recently a newish side hustle turned career as a realtor. Welcome, Dawn.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Let's cheers. Cheers to having Dawn on the show.
Good to see you.
Cheers.
Our first, well, now that we're calling it Badass Women, we've had Badass Women on before, but we officially branded it Badass Women. So let's talk about Donna because that's your license plate.
Yes, it's short form,
Donna.
Yeah.
Which is great. So Dawn and I go way back to high school. And way back then, and you thought I came up with that nickname, but I didn't. Someone else did.
Oh, right.
It was Shannon.
Yes. My memory is fading.
But it's always stuck, Donna Weena. And I don't know how Shannon came up with it and where it came from, but it was funny.
From high school?
High school.
Okay.
Well, actually, probably grade 8.
Just rolled off her lips one day.
And it stuck. And now it's her license plate, Donna Wana. Yeah. And it's not on your real estate signs, is
Absolutely not.
No, it's a little too casual.
Yeah.
A little too casual. So what we're going to talk about, because we've all been through it, all of us have worked corporately for a long time. You've worked in many different corporations. I've only worked in a couple. You've only really worked in one before we started our own business, right?
Yeah, Air, Canadian. And
okay. Yeah, as a flight attendant.
Yeah.
And a lot of women that I know, especially now, when they're in that kind of 55-year-old bracket, they're getting packaged out. And it's catching a lot of these women off guard because they're not ready to stop working. And it seems like in some cases, we have an expiry date on us at 55, which, and some women are totally prepared and they don't mind. Like, I think we know about 6 people. Right? And they're all different. Some are struggling. They can't find a job. Some are happy. They're like, I was kind of prepared anyway. I'm going to retire early and do volunteer work. And others really struggle. But I know with you, like we worked together at Bell for many years, but I knew you way before Bell. You got me into Bell.
I think so. I tried to get everybody into Bell.
Yeah, no, you got me into Bell.
I wanted to be one big happy family, and it was.
It was.
For a while.
It was amazing. No, you called me. I just graduated university, couldn't find a job. It was like 4 days out. And you said, go to this temp agency.
That's the way to get in.
And then you'll get it. And it's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
I went to the temp agency and then I was a receptionist for a while. And I remember thinking, well, I'm not going to be a receptionist for long. And I wasn't. But how snotty of me to even think that. Like I was getting, decent pay at a really good company. So yeah, you got me in. And then I met Bob Lavelle. And anyway, the rest is history. But you worked at Bell. You were packaged out at Bell. I remember that because it was devastating.
After 16 years, I thought I was a lifer. Yeah. I really thought I was a lifer. I liked what I did. I loved the people. I knew that it was a great company. I knew that lots of people had retired from there. So there was no way that for me being there for 16 years that was going to happen to me. Guess what?
Blindsided.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, at that point, you were a lot younger.
I was a lot younger. My kids were smaller, and it was devastating to me.
And you weren't the only one. There was a lot of.
There was 80. I believe there was 80 that day, and I believe over a period of a couple of months, it was something like 400 or 600 people across.
Because you sat across from
the organization. It was a lot of people, or maybe it was over like a longer period of time. But I know it was a lot of people that were impacted. Yeah.
And we know. Because we've been packaged out too. Although ours might have been a bit personal, but typically it's not personal. They're company cuts, that's it. But it doesn't matter if it's not personal because it feels personal.
It does. Yeah. And from there, it didn't take me long to get into Procter & Gamble. So obviously, great company, was there for 6 years. So it worked out well for me, but at the time, it doesn't feel like it at all.
Yeah.
Worked there for 6 years and then they relocated. So that more was, I was given an opportunity to make a decision whether or not I wanted to stay with the company, relocate to Young & Shepherd, or did I want to take a package? So I had a 6-month warning.
Oh,
which was really nice. So I could meet with my financial advisor. I could weigh the pros and cons. I could start looking for jobs if I wanted to. So much preferred that scenario than the first scenario. Yeah. So that was great. So that was my decision to leave, but it was still a package nonetheless. And it was still, detaching yourself from
and having to start again.
Right.
Pardon?
And having to start again.
And that's not nice either. That's a whole other journey in itself, right?
So how old were you approximately when that so first when you were packaged out at Bell, what were you, in your 30s?
Yes, definitely.
In your 30s. Okay, but late 30s. So then P&G, that was, so you're in your early 40s.
Yeah, early 40s. I'd say early 40s. And then from there I thought, oh great, okay. So, but because I had that warning, I did start looking. So again, it didn't take me very long. I worked for a private company for a while with health and beauty brands, hair shampoo.
That's so up your alley.
and I thought, wow, I've really hit the jackpot here. I worked there for 3 years. Their company was called Belvedere International.
Oh, I remember that.
They actually they were bought out by another company, and I'm sorry, it escapes me right now what they're called, but it's a big corporation that bought them out. Some of the brands still exist today. So that was, near and dear.
Free hairspray?
To my heart, absolutely.
Oh my God.
100%.
Dream job.
They had employee discounts, things like that, like every other job. And then from there, I went to go work for Coleman, the outdoor company.
Yes.
Tents,
shelters,
thermoses, coolers. Yeah.
And you corrected us because I called it Coleman's, and apparently that's common, but it's Coleman.
It's Coleman, the Coleman company. Yes. Right. So that company went through a couple of different acquisitions, and those acquisitions are difficult in themselves, right? Just going through different company processes, people get laid off, people get shuffled around. And so that's corporate. That's corporate. Like that's every day, you build a thick skin to those types of things. And it can get a little exhausting in itself, So
how long were you there, Coleman?
16 years again.
16
is a magic number with me. Wow. I don't know what it is, but actually Bell was 13. This one was 16.
Yeah.
So, after four very large companies, and after the third package, because there was a big layoff again about a year ago, for me, I was impacted about a year ago. I thought, and I knew that there was this was happening with this particular company. Yeah. It just every couple of years, every year, they just cycle through, and if the company is doing well, then chances are that nothing's going to happen that year. But if the company is having challenges, then it's just like any other corporation. So I kind of had in my mind, I don't think I want to do this again. I think I'm finished with working for large companies. I don't believe I'm in a position in my life anymore that I have to do this anymore. But what's my next step in my journey? And so for me, I was always interested in real estate. I've met a ton of people that say the same thing. They're just interested in homes and what things cost, and love to go to open houses, and really love the allure of real estate without really knowing all of the details and the nuances in between. But that's kind of farther on down. But I thought to myself, my kids are older now. They don't need me like they used to anymore. And I met with a colleague of mine for lunch one day, and I just said, I think there's something more. I think, maybe I'm going to think about doing something else. And she was a realtor on the side. She was a part-time realtor, works at a very big corporation, still does.
Wow.
So
when was this? Like how long ago?
I'd say late probably 2019.
And you were still at Coleman.
I was still at Coleman.
Yeah.
Okay. So like 6 years ago.
Full-fledged. Yeah. And I said, she said, well, you should, if you wanted to get into real estate, you better get into real estate soon because the college is closing, the Ontario Real Estate College. And I said,
what do you mean it's closing?
Well, it's called Aurea, and it was closing forever, and it was being transitioned over to Humber. So it still exists today. Aurea still exists today, but not as a college. That's not where you get your education from any longer.
So it would have been different the way that you would become a realtor.
Right. But at the time, nobody knew that it was going to Humber. Nobody knew how else they were going to get their real estate education at that point. There wasn't a lot of, information at the time. So I panicked a little. And I went back. I remember distinctly, I went back to the office and I sat down and I didn't even really think about it. I thought, if I don't do this now, because I had about 18 months, almost 2 years actually, to finish my license, that I wasn't going to do it. I probably wasn't going to do it because I didn't know how else. I didn't have all the answers to think, okay, well, am I going to go to college? Am I going to be able to do this online? Do I have to do it full time? Do I have to? Because I just didn't have all the answers. So it was a different
process when it was switching to Humber than what it was when
started.
You did it.
Yeah. But it was good because it just made me launch right into what I had been talking about for years. If you ask my family, if you ask my friends, they'll say, yeah, like she has been saying this for years. So I decided just to put my money where my mouth was and said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to try it. I'm going to do it.
So at this point, you'd already started.
Yeah.
But now it's like, okay, I have to do it now because the college is going to transition somehow, and you didn't know what that looked like. So you're working full time at Coleman, and you're saying, okay, now I'm going to do my real estate
it was difficult.
program now. I'm sure it was. And that I wanted to ask you about that because I know we chatted about it when you were going through it. And it took 18 months in total or longer?
Yeah, luckily for me, there was a lot of people in my position that, were enrolled in these courses. COVID had hit, throughout that. And it was challenging, to get exam time. It was challenging for people to be finished. And, the college probably recognized, there's still all of these people that haven't finished. They could see how many people hadn't finished. So they were extending it another 6 months, extending it another 6 months, thank goodness. So at that point, I actually did get a tutor. I ended up getting somebody that, I could work with that really made me focus and get the courses done because they needed to get done. I was running out of time. Because
I know the other corporate jobs you had a small family. And so, I mean, that's demanding. We've all done it. Yeah. We've all had young kids and worked full time all the time. So now your kids are older, but the demanding part is doing this course when you have a full-time job. Yeah. Like your kids are older, they still need you to a certain extent. But the bottom line is now you have a full-time job and you're going back to school. And I remember talking to you and saying, I'm so impressed because I couldn't imagine going back to school now.
Honestly, when I look back, I remember staying up late at night. I remember, cramming. I remember praying every time I went into an exam. Like, did I know enough? Am I going to pass it? I think I failed once and I had to go back and rewrite. Everything else was...
How many exams do you have to write?
I think there was 8.
Oh.
If I'm not mistaken.
So are they all different? Like one is contract and one is...
all different subjects. All different subjects. And it's a lot of memory work. It's a lot of reading, a lot of technical. And honestly, when you get your license, you don't have all the answers. It's... you have to learn as you go at the same time.
And lean on other people.
Lean on other people in the brokerage. Lean on your peers. All of those things, and really, that's the best way to learn. Honestly, because every scenario is different. All clients are different. All needs are different.
I think it's similar in corporate jobs too.
Yeah, and maybe that's. I don't find it easy. It's not easy by any means, but very social person. I just feel like,
and you're a hustler.
I guess
You'll figure it out.
You'll figure it out.
When you set your mind to something, you do it. I should mention, actually, and this is hilarious. You and I had our first job together.
Oh, Lord.
At the Family Pet Center when we were 14. That's how we first kind of became friends. And you worked the Thursday, Friday, I worked the weekend, you packaged the food. Anyway, so, I mean, we've been working long time, whether it be part-time. Yes. Yep. And you're a hustler. And when you decide something, just like we were talking earlier, you're doing dry January, now you're doing dry February. When you put your mind to it, you do it. Yeah. But I'm sure that wasn't easy at all.
At the same time, I needed to prove it to myself. And I didn't want to be that person that said, I'd love to be a real estate agent and never have done it. Yeah. I mean, that's not acceptable. Mm-hmm.
See? That's your mentality. That's good. That's why you're a badass woman. Yeah.
Absolutely. You know what? I never looked at it that way, but sure. I'll take it.
100%.
It's a compliment, I suppose.
So, and at the same time, we should add, because a lot of people are probably wondering, like, oh my God, I have a full-time job. Could I actually do that and become a real estate agent? Your company knew that you were taking the test.
They actually didn't.
At first.
There were some people that I worked with closely that were aware that during all of that, my courses, me getting licensed, I guess, to be a realtor, not a lot of people knew. Absolutely
Which is
not.
fine.
Because I wasn't sure if I was going to finish it.
No, okay, right. You're just taking a course.
Right.
I was
taking
a course.
Yeah.
Evenings. Yeah, absolutely. Evenings, 2 days a week type thing. A lot of it was independent work. But when I did get my license and I did start working on it part-time, I think I'm jumping ahead probably a little bit,
no, that's
right? Okay. I had told, there were a few people in the organization that knew about it. And it was, I made it very clear, and I was somewhat transparent with the company, with human resources, that, your full-time job comes first. Yeah. And that anything that you do extracurricularly, like any other job, if I had gone and gotten a part-time job, would have been evenings and weekends. So, you have to set that baseline and kind of stick to it, because you do have two jobs.
Yeah, and otherwise, if you're not transparent in that way, you could lose your main job before you're ready to start your side hustle. I know we went through it when we were at Bell, and we started Real, and we only did creative things that didn't involve, like, they weren't labor intensive. We did it after hours and all of that. And we were told, you have to be lily white. And we were very transparent with all of that.
I remember that. Yeah. And, to start a career like that, especially where I am, it's a little bit different market than Toronto is. But
so you're in the Kawarthas, because we didn't say that yet.
I'm in Kawartha Lakes, yes. I'm definitely in Kawartha Lakes. But, real estate takes a while to kind of get up and going, learn what you need to do through the brokerage. You meet a lot of people. They become your clients eventually. It's not something that just happens overnight. It's something that, this is a career that you're building over time. I've been in it now. I think I'm going in my 5th year now, believe it or not.
Wow.
My math, that's just great. Yeah, I think it's my 5th year. And
we can't count either.
It's the last couple of years, the market hasn't been too great because of the interest rate. So it has slowed down. So it's not something that is as busy at times as
and in the beginning, it's good that it was gradual.
Very gradual.
Well. So, that worked to your advantage so that you could ease into it. Yeah. And when I think of real estate agents, when are they doing open houses or going to take people to homes? It's after they work. And it's on the weekends. So I think it's a perfect career to
So that was an adjustment for me, because that used to be my spare time prior to this new career. But there was no such thing as spare time anymore. And I did feel a sense of burnout, especially over COVID, because the market was pretty hot. But at the same time, it was exciting. It was new. I was my own boss. So it was good. Yeah. And it still is good. I'm proud of it. I love it. There's good days and bad days like any other, but it's just a big accomplishment.
Yeah. I have no doubt you're very good at it. And of course, we follow Dawn on Facebook and on Instagram and TikTok, and we see your TikToks.
I need to do more.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we'll link you. So for anyone who's in the Kawarthas looking for, so is it mostly in that area? Is it mostly cottages, or sometimes is it mostly homes?
I think that's the perception.
That's
people
what I would have
do
thought.
think that it's cottages, and for the most part, they are recreational properties for sure. But a lot of people live up there. There's a lot of beautiful homes.
Do you have a lot of people downsizing from Toronto and moving?
Quite a bit, actually. And not even from Toronto so much as, just larger homes that are in the area and their kids are gone and they want to travel. So they want to benefit from having that equity in their pocket. And so they could buy a vacation home perhaps in the US or somewhere in the South, or they can just travel and not have to worry about finances.
And how much lakefront is available? Like you always hear about this in
there's only so
they're not building anymore.
No, they're not.
They're not making anymore.
So is it just homes that come up for sale? There's no real new property?
There is vacant properties that do come up on waterfront, but in my particular area, not as much as one would think. For the most part, a lot of what we see, I'm lucky in the area that I am in because we do have a lot of beautiful lakes in and around where I am. So there is quite a bit. It's just your budget and what it is that you'd be prepared to pay for it. What
is the average cost of, let's call it lakefront cottages? And I know there's so many different parameters.
So many different, I think
starter to a gorgeous one.
I would say the perception is that you should be able to go up north in the Kawarthas and find something on the water for $500,000, and that perception is really not accurate at all. But I have seen, since our market has softened over the last couple of years, I have seen some very nice starter cottages. Let's call it maybe $799 on a lake. It may not be in the best part of the lake, but it is
facing
still
the right
waterfront. If it's something that is owned, there's leased land property through Parks Canada.
What does that mean?
That means that you own the properties on.
You own the
structures on the property, but that you lease the property from Parks Canada, for example. So those leases they're usually every 5 years that they renew. I can honestly say, in my personal experience, because we lived in one for 16 years, in Kawartha Lakes. And I think on average, it was about $4,000 a year that we would pay Parks Canada to lease the property. You still have to pay taxes.
That's not bad.
You still have to pay your utilities. You still have to pay your mortgage or whatever it was that you had bought, the structures. So that's a nice entryway into cottaging.
And it's not like, condo fees where they go crazy every year. That's not.
No, they do renew them every 5 years. And then from there, you can look at cottage ownership, or you can transition to actually live up there. And that was the other thing. I knew that I didn't want to work for the corporate life any longer. So I had to think of a long-term plan. What was I going to do when I moved up there full time? Again, my kids are older, moving on. I live in Brampton right now. That's not my long-term goal. So I wanted to find something that I was going to be my own boss.
So you still have the house in Brampton, but you now have a different cottage up, or house really, up in the Kawarthas, which makes you a great real estate agent there, because it would be hard to be a real estate agent there.
You really need to sell where you live.
Yeah,
you really need to be aware of your market. You really need to sell where you live. And I don't sell in Brampton. I'm in Kawartha Lakes, I would say 80-90% of the time.
And your husband is there?
Yes.
About 100% of the time.
You'd like to say that, but it's true sometimes. Yeah, definitely. So it's great. It's just it's a different lifestyle that I've gotten used to it now, but it took some getting used to.
But you were in charge of your destiny. Like, you went through 2 packages that upset you. You knew there was all kinds of restructuring with Coleman.
Yep.
And you decided you're getting at that age that you're going to take charge of what's next for you. You decided to go become a realtor. You took the course. You kept working while doing it and managing both. And then you were packaged out eventually. But on your terms, more or less. I mean, they packaged you out because they were getting rid of the position.
It was a 5-year plan almost.
It was. Like that was amazing.
I mean, it was still
6 years.
It was still a shock, even though, I knew that there was that chance that could happen with that company. I kind of did want to exit on my terms, but it didn't work out that way. But it all worked out.
But kind of on your terms. Even though, yes, they were the ones that said at this point they're going to package you out. You already had your plan.
I guess I was setting myself up for
100%.
to exit. It's just how it happened. Yes.
Can't control it all.
No, even though I'm that kind of person.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't think there's a lot of people who can say that they proactively plan for that, knowing that it might come because of the women that we know. There's 6 of them right now that were all in that 55-year-old mark between, 53 to 56, whatever. And they're packaged out and they're kind of caught off guard because even though they knew it could have happened, it seems to be that corporate age where your expiry date can come up.
It absolutely. Yeah. And that's the advice I probably give people now then when I have conversations with them is, just because you have that job, is there something else that you're interested in? And even if you don't take action on that, you need to be able to react
if something happened.
At least have it in the back of your mind so you don't feel so desperate. You don't feel like, I don't know where to go from here. Almost like, I don't know, just really sit down with yourself and talk about what are my interests, what would I do? And you may not need it for a while, but I don't know, that's what worked for me, probably because I have been through it a few times. And it's not a nice feeling. You do feel like you're not in control. And I wasn't going to have that happen to me again.
And not only that, we're all in our 50s, mid 50s, but we're not ready to do nothing. And even if I could retire, which I cannot, we still have a lot to offer. Whether it's with our own business, whether it's to a company. I think that's when it's important because people are thinking, now it's a bit early for me to just relax with my husband and go travel if that's the plan that they had. 55, let's call it, you're still pretty young, I think. I feel. I think we do.
So. I do other things on the side with friends. We sell premium items for our lake, for example. So we've started another little side hustle.
Another side hustle.
And it's also a great way to reach the general population in the area to let them know who you are. And what's nice is a lot of them already do know who I am, which is great. And it's just another way of networking. But at the same time, if you love where you live and you love what you do and you see an opportunity to maybe do something like premium items for the lake because, you want to wear your lake loud and proud, then it's just something that we do. It's just something else to fill in the time because real estate isn't 100% of the time, unfortunately. I wish it was, but it's not. So just find special interests, find
that you love
things to do,
things that you love or you're passionate about. Yeah. I think that's what you've done, and I think that is really important. Just to have a plan to do some kind of side hustle that is a grind and you don't like or it doesn't come easy, I don't think is a good suggestion.
Right.
Well, you've done it all right, for sure.
I'm sure I've done a lot wrong too, but that's how you learn.
So, we're all badass women who work around here, or we're saying we are. We're self-promoting badass women. We all have different stories. We have setbacks. We have successes. I think Dawn's story is a great illustration of how women can proactively plan to stay working well beyond their corporate career. If by chance that corporation decides to package you out at that unfortunate magical number that seems to be around 55. So it may not be easy, but it is doable. And Dawn certainly has done it very successfully. So respect to you. And you guys can do it too.
You're so good to me.
We're going to share many more female career stories and entrepreneurial stories in our Badass Women Who Work playlist. So stay tuned. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and to drop a comment below. And we want to hear from you. What other topics do you want to hear from, specifically from badass women or otherwise? Because that's what we're all about here. We're about real life, real stories, real talk. And until next time, be real.
Be real.